Well, thank you very much indeed for those words of welcome. And may I also extend my gratitude to the MC, a budding leader within BMF. We exchange roles with the likes of you. It's about time we actually followed. You providing very dynamic leadership at a very, very early age. We commend that. And even as we contemplate making a transition to the year after, we will do so with a sense of satisfaction. Sis Zanele and the family, in particular Monde, who coordinated this occasion in tandem with the BMF and did a commendable job. May I extend my gratitude to you. Prof. Nkutlu, for those wonderful words of introduction. You know, it's very, very rare that you get to be introduced by an institution. Professor Nkutlu is an institution. There is no question about it. He is actually one personality that blew to smithereens the fact that you cannot be black and numerate. He made it very, very clear you can be black, numerate, literate, and you can actually be Pan-African. And thank you very much, Prof, for those kind words of introduction. Even though you are a few years older than me, there are times when I have this morbid wish that perhaps I should precede you so that you could also deliver those kinds of words as a eulogy. May I also extend my gratitude to the BMF through its current president, Mthunzi Mngane, for the bold leadership that you are providing. We take delight in being led by people who actually take a stand, and having taken a stand, say, I will declare what I need to declare and let the chips fall where they may. Thank you very much for the bold leadership that you're providing. May I also commend the BMF for thinking of using this auditorium at the NetBank. NetBank is the house that Lot helped to build. But not only did he help to build, he also made sure that it was a house united, and that it was going to continue to be a house united by the kinds of principles that he articulated in this video. That was vintage Ndlovu. Unmistakable. He doesn't mince his words. He carries no favor with anybody. He takes a stand and communicates a message in a manner that lasts. That was Ndlovu. There is a sense in which if you have done these kinds of things, you don't die. You continue living in the hearts and the minds of those you leave behind. And by so doing, you actually immortalize yourself. So he took a position and stated what he wanted to state, personified, embodied transformation. Nobody could have made a better statement about transformation. And in that respect, Lot lives eternal. Prof, you also made reference to the Ethiopians who actually never succumbed to being colonized. The Italians tried to occupy Ethiopia and got repelled and went back bloodied-nosed. Perhaps you should also have said something about the the Battle of Isandlwana, where the English thought it was going to be a walkover. And they got very, very painfully surprised. It so happens that the commander-in-chief of the Zulu Amabutho was Nchingwayo Kamahole Khoza. I had to say that because, I mean, a Khoza hero had to actually leave a legacy. So, Prof, next time you talk about the Ethiopians, talk about the Battle of Isandlwana. And remember the general. Thank you very much indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, I feel honored that you saw it fit to come and honor the third Lord Ndlovu Memorial Lecture. I am indeed very delighted to join you on this occasion, the third Lord Ndlovu Memorial Lecture. Lord cared to reflect, to cogitate, and even to contemplate the plight and future of our beloved country, South Africa. It thus behoves us in his memory to pause for a moment to reflect on the state of our political economy. Lord Ndlovu was no idle armchair sophist. He was a pragmatic thinker and committed doer. Even in this regard, we need to pluck a leaf out of Lord's life. Lord Ndlovu and I had a few things in common. Among these was our abiding admiration for Frederick Douglass, a 19th century African-American leader of great stature, about whom James McCune Smith had the following to say, I quote, "When a man raises himself from the lowest condition in society to the highest, mankind pays him the tribute to their admiration. When he accomplishes this elevation by native energy, guided by prudence and wisdom, their admiration is increased. But when this course, onward and upward, excellent in itself, furthermore proves possible what had hitherto been regarded as an impossible reform, then he becomes a shining light on which the aged look with gladness, the young with hope, the downtrodden as a representative of what they themselves may become." Close quote. In this era, in this country, this and more befits one Maduke, Lord Ndlovu. May I proceed to laud Lord's character, personhood, leadership traits, and accomplishments. Essentially principle-centered and purpose-driven, Lord was a visionary who clearly understood that vision without dogged implementation is hallucination. A strategist who comprehended with immense profundity that a plan is sterile, that active planning and a bias for action are potent. A daring corporate pioneer, leading champion and exponent for transformation. That clip just demonstrated that to us. A luminary who illuminated an otherwise racially darkened corporate arena, compelling it to pause and reflect. An African Renaissance man who persistently pushed the envelope in restoring and enhancing Africa's pride and dignity. An African banker who, through executive leadership of People's Bank and championing Nedbank's transformation, made history. An African leader who lucidly understood that a head boy without a head, a shepherd without a flock, is a wanderer. That similarly, a leader without followers is a leader in limbo. An African leader who gave credence to the motto, "Lift as you rise," by practically manifesting this in various walks of socioeconomic life. I'm still talking about Lord. A corporate leader who personified our credo that effective leaders are those that are vision beckoned and values predicated. A purpose-driven leader who just knew he had a date with destiny and was destined to leave a positive legacy. A drum major and flag bearer for change, peace, equality, and socioeconomic development. Let good triumph over evil, proclaims Lot's spirit. Edmund Burke opined, "When evil men combine, good men must unite." Close quote. This is the pressing challenge of our time. When evil people plot, good people must plan. When sinister people plunder and loot, well-meaning people must build and progress. When the evil conspire to preserve and perpetuate an unjust and ethically questionable status quo, good people must gather to ensure a society predicated on justice and fairness. Nothing can be more detrimental to the socioeconomic health of South Africa at this conjuncture than for its citizens of goodwill to sink into debilitating apathy and placid indifference. The plea for a concerted effort is not a call for uniformity. There must always be a healthy debate. There will be inevitable differences of opinion in the dilemma faced by our political economy, which is so complex and massive that its solution will necessarily involve a diversified approach. But conscientious South Africans can differ and still unite around serving the national interest. The fruits of a sound constitution will not usher themselves in on the wheels of inevitability. This country's intelligentsia, particularly the black intelligentsia, must enter the fray and extract practical fruits from our much extolled Constitution. Lot believed in lifting as he rose. Therefore, let us lift as we rise. How many South Africans who are educated and have achieved economic security are oblivious of the fact that they are where they are because of the support of faceless, illiterate, and unsung Africans who did ordinary jobs in extraordinary ways. How many of us have forgotten that uneducated and poverty-stricken mothers and fathers often toiled under the sun until their eyebrows were scorched and their hands bruised, a la the Marikana miners, so that their children could get an education? For any middle class black South Africans to forget the masses is an act not only of utter neglect, but of ignominious ingratitude. Now is the time for the African haves to join hands with the African have-nots and with dedication and compassion to journey into those sectors plagued by hurt and denial. Now is the time for the putative black middle class to rise up from its seat of placid indifference, to retreat from its flight of fantasy, and to bring its full resources, its heart, its mind, and its check book or EFT facility to the aid of the less fortunate. The relatively well-off Africans will never be what they ought to be until the underprivileged Africans are what they ought to be. The salvation of the ostensible black middle classes is ultimately dependent upon the salvation of the African masses. This is at the heart of Ubuntu. There is a crying need for a racial restructuring of the architecture of South African society. For its survival's sake, South Africa must re-examine its value system. For the evils of self-centeredness, corruption, and downright kleptocracy to die, a new set of values must be born. Our economy must become more person-centered than property and profit-centered. Our political leadership must depend more on its moral authority than on its majoritarian hegemony. We are particularly well placed to do this because we have just emerged from being seared in the flames of the apartheid politics of oppression and economics of exclusion. We have known firsthand the agony of being the underdog. Our painful knowledge is still fresh. We know that it is of no benefit for the nation to gain the whole world of political freedom and lose the end of justice, fairness, economic emancipation, and prosperity. May I move on to reflect on something that Lord held dearly. Wisdom begins in wonder. There is one expression that Lord Ndlovu used to be very fond of, particularly when he was about to engage in a very serious discourse with a view to drive a significant point home. He would say, I wonder, and then pause. Then you know that you are in for serious engagement. I wonder. This may very well have been a favorite personal opening gamut, or it may stem from personal familiarity with and fondness of Socrates' phrase from Plato's Theaetetus, wisdom begins in wonder. Socrates, when the young Theaetetus was introduced to him as a lad of brilliant promise, said to him that he felt sure Theaetetus had thought of much. The boy answered, "Oh no, not that, but at least I have wondered about much." "Ah," said Socrates, "that shows the lover of wisdom. For wisdom begins in wonder." Lot would have continued to wonder about a host of challenges facing present-day South Africa. His wonder would have propelled him to engage, because merely wondering, I mean, anybody can wonder, but merely wondering takes you nowhere. His wonder would have propelled him to engage, to vigorously seek appropriate solutions. The Lot Ndlovu I know, or knew, philosophically agreed with Robert J. McCracken that, I quote, "The world is perishing for the want, the world is not perishing for the want of clever or talented or even well-meaning people. It is perishing for the want of people of courage and resolution, who in devotion to the cause of right and truth can rise above personal feeling and private ambition." Close quote. Lot Ndlovu, a personality enveloped in gravitas and unmistakable dynamic charisma, but vicious in attacking bigotry and racial discrimination in corporate South Africa and in the country at large, would have continued to wonder about various aspects of the state of our nation. His wonder would have led to dogged inquiry and exploration, to seeking and finding solutions to vexing challenges confronting South Africa today. These would, I submit, include the following: wondering why South Africa has chosen to elevate mediocrity to the status of virtue. Why unqualified, underqualified, ill-qualified, and downright ignorant people are appointed to the country's mission-critical institutions, such as your SABC, your SAA, and others. He would have continued to wondering about the motive behind the contempt and derision leveled against those who are enlightened and educated. Lot would have continued to wonder where this would take our beloved country unless our intelligentsia rise up to provide alternative answers and solutions. Lot would wonder why higher political rank, which is not necessarily well-informed, almost always trumps tested and tried wisdom and expertise on issues of managing our economy. His wonder would intensify as he observes our intelligentsia as he observes this continuing apace without being challenged, unchecked. I bet the Lord Ndlovu I knew would speak up using one forum or another, certainly the BMF platform. The Lord Ndlovu I knew would certainly wonder about the phenomenon now known as state capture. Glib blanket explanations such as, hey, there is no state capture. Can't you see the legislature, i.e. parliament, the executive, i.e. some cabinet ministers, and certainly the judiciary are in place? Who is captured there? Lot's incisive mind would cut through this charade and argue that the treacherous mind of the corporate capturer schemes strategically and chooses to go for the jugular, plants the poisonous seed where it matters, and leaves the rest to cascade through a system otherwise rendered receptive. It behoves us to wonder, in honor of Lot, to wonder about the efficacy of cadre development compared to straightforward meritocracy-based employment. Cadre development is perforce ideologically informed, necessarily restrictive of the national talent pool, exclusionary to those who are highly qualified and able, but resistant to often irrational party political dictates. Excessive dalliance with cadre deployment inevitably quickly reach the point of diminishing returns, resulting in suboptimal utilization of our national human resources. How can cadre development be good for our developing political economy? We should wonder, and that should be the beginning of our action-oriented wisdom. We, in honor of Lot, must of necessity wonder about and seek solutions to what passes for morbid self-flagellation by sections of our society. The sadomasochism manifest in destroying our own national assets, sorely needed assets. It should be self-evident that if one is in search of a better job, it does not help to burn down the factory. If one needs better education, burning down libraries, laboratories, classrooms, and lecture halls will only set us back. If housing is the goal, only building and construction will produce that end. To destroy anything or harm any person cannot bring us any closer to the wholesome goals we seek. Our country needs psychotherapy on a national scale. It behoves our intelligentsia to appreciate this as a national challenge and to move with dogged determination to address it. Ages ago, Aristotle observed that those who educate children well are more to be honored than parents, for these, i.e. parents, only gave life, and those, i.e. educators, the art of living, close quote. As we look around the education arena in contemporary South Africa, what do we see? We observe inter alia teachers affiliated to SADTU failing to appreciate that teaching is as much a profession as it is a calling. That their core duty is nation building. That if need be, they should lay themselves down as a bridge over troubled water. The troubled water of ignorance, poverty, and unemployability. Instead, we see a union of educators failing to pursue excellence, at times becoming so depraved as to peddle teaching posts and leadership positions in this noble calling, thus hurting the nation where it hurts most, poisoning teaching and administration. It behoves us, as the enlightened of our era, nudged by the living spirit of Lot, it behoves us to wonder and to develop the requisite wisdom for devising virtuous modus operandi to tackle this core national challenge. Wisdom begins in wonder. Do we wonder? Among the governance concepts bandied about and subtly applied in just over 100 years old, i.e. just over 20 years, a republic, is democratic centralism. Nice concept. Webster's third New International Dictionary defines democratic centralism as a communist system of or principle of hierarchy or hierarchic organization that seeks to combine democratic participation of the rank and file in the discussion of policy and the election of officers and of delegates to the next higher unit with strict obedience by the members and lower bodies to the decisions of the higher units, and with absolute authority residing in fact at the apex of the hierarchic structure and strict discipline being enforced, close quote. As we know, democracy is a form of government in which the supreme power is in fact vested in the people and exercised by them directly. In the light of this, don't we wonder? Wonder if democratic centralism is not an oxymoron yelling for rigorous discourse. Don't we wonder why the one at the apex, surrounded by a few sycophants, can put together members of the top unit with no known objective criteria and can, at whim, fire the best among them for no rhyme or reason? Do we wonder? Wisdom begins in wonder. How often do we wonder? I guess enough of this pontification. May I conclude by a brief return to Maduke Lot's character and what I believe to be the inspirational aspects of his personhood. Note, not personality, but personhood, the status that he earned by dint of what he actually did. Of Lot, Confucius would have said, quote, "There are 3 marks of a superior man. Being virtuous, he is free from anxiety. Being wise, he is free from perplexity. Being brave, he is free from fear," close quote. Throughout my association with Lot, within the BMF, as fellow directors of NetBank and NAMPEC, even as wholesome competitors scrambling for BE investment opportunities, I have known Lot to be virtuous and therefore never anxious. I have known him to be wise and reflective and therefore free from perplexity. I have known Lot to be courageous even as we confronted the apartheid monster from our BMF vantage point. Yes, indeed, I have known Lot to wonder about a host of vexing issues confronting our political economy, and to proceed from wonder to seeking attendant solutions boldly, diligently, doggedly, luminously. Wisdom begins in wonder. Shall we, in memory of Maduke Lord Ndlovu, wonder? Wonder about the plight of our nation, wonder about our national vision, wonder about what our generation will bequeath to posterity. Wisdom begins in wonder. I thank you very much.